Speaking for the first time, my name is Reuven Prager. I'm originally from Miami Beach, Florida. That's why I can speak English. I've been living in Israel for the last 34 years, and for the last 28 years of that, I've been serving as a Levite on duty, researching and restoring ancient Israelite customs in preparation for rebuilding the temple. Let me define that. When I say that I serve as a Levite on duty, my father is a Levite, my father's father was a Levite, my father's 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 father was a Levite, all the way back to biblical Levi. Now you remember that when the Israelites entered the land of Israel, the land was apportioned amongst 11 of the 12 tribes. The tribe of Levi, we didn't receive a portion of the land, we received a duty. Our duty was to provide the physical vessels necessary for the spiritual well-being of the people. When it came time to construct the tabernacle, it was the Levites who constructed it. During our 40 years of wandering in the desert, when it came time to move our encampment, it was the Levites who would disassemble the tabernacle, the Levites who would carry it, and the Levites who would reassemble it when we got to our new campsite. When we entered the land of Israel and we built the Holy Temple, if a Kohen, a priest, needed a vessel, it was a Levite who provided it, and if the vessel didn't exist, it was a Levite who created it. We were the doctors, we were the teachers, we were the singers, we were the one tribe that was set aside to minister to the spiritual needs of the people. And in lieu of our service, we were granted the tithe. That 10% that we were commanded to give to the Levites was to free us from worldly pursuit so we'd be available to minister to the spiritual needs of the people. A Levite is in training from age 20 to 25, and from age 25 to age 50, you're on duty. I just turned 52. I can't believe I got so old so quick, you know? No, really, when I moved to Israel, I was 19 years old, and I blinked twice, and I'm 52 years old, you know? Which is an ironic because a Levite can only serve in the temple up until the age of 50. A Kohen, a priest, can serve literally until he drops dead of old age. But a Levite can only serve up until the age of 50, which means that if I succeed and in our lifetime we see the temple rebuilt, I can't even serve in it because I'm an old geezer now. You know? But I still serve as a Levite on duty. I mean, it's not like I can go get a job, look how I dress, who's going to hire me? You know, so I continue doing what I'm doing, even though that I'm beyond the limit. It restricts me. I can't serve within the temple precincts. Like the Levites were the singers, right? The guys who would sing. But like, there's singers that sing beyond the age of 50. You still have your voice, you know? But for whatever reason, I haven't been able to figure it out. The Levites can only serve in the temple up until the age of 50. When I say that I research and restore ancient Israelite customs in preparation for rebuilding the temple, that also needs defining. Whatever you're familiar with is contemporary Jewish practice, normative Judaism, the way the Jews do things today. Almost nothing that we do today in contemporary Judaism do we do the way that our ancestors did it. Let me give you an analogy that will help you understand the nature of my work. Let's say we have a couple that, God forbid, the husband's in a terrible accident. They put him in a full body cast, covers 93% of his body, just his foot is left outside of the cast. And the doctors come and tell this couple that this poor guy's going to be like this for 2 whole years. So during those 2 years, his wife learns to care for him and love him through his foot. At the end of the 2 years, the doctors come and they remove the cast, and she continues only paying attention to his foot, ignoring the rest of him. In a sense, that's Judaism today. 2,000 years ago, when the Holy Temple was destroyed and we were exiled from our land, we lost the ability to fulfill 93% of our religious customs. Those customs that we could pack in a suitcase and take with us in our wanderings in exile became the focal point for normative Judaism for the next 2,000 years, basically keeping the Sabbath and its related laws, the laws of kashrut, how to eat clean, honoring your parents. But the other 93% of customs that we could no longer perform for real because the temple had been destroyed and we were exiled from our land, those customs were reinstituted in the 1st century into a series of what we call in Hebrew zechers, remembrances, so that as we went out into exile, we'd be able to remember what our ancient customs were, so that when the generation arose that merited to return to the land of Israel, we remember how to restore our ancient customs. Let me give you a practical for example. Book of Numbers, chapter 15, verses 37 to 41. God commands Moses to bid the children of Israel to put fringes on the corners of our garments throughout our generations. You guys are all familiar with a talit, right? This group, you all know what a talis is?
Yep.
I hope so. Some of these groups are speaker here, you know. Right? For the last 2,000 years, the way that we fulfill the commandment of fringes has been by wrapping ourselves in a prayer shawl during the time of prayer. And those of us who would wear our tzitzit, our fringes, during the course of the day, would wear them attached to the four corners of a little undergarment that in Hebrew is known as the talit katan. Everybody say katan?
Katan.
Katan in Hebrew means small. It's a little four-cornered garment. It's got holes in the corners. We attach the tzitzit to, and we would wear this hidden underneath our Gentile apparel. Like if you go to a predominantly Orthodox area, like what is it? Kagan's Crossing, Zion, Cohen's Black Kosher Deli, which I just discovered yesterday. Right, not a bad hamburger. You go there on a Friday and you'll see all the, the Orthodox guys, they're dressed like you guys, but coming out from underneath their shirt are the fringes which are attached to a little four-cornered garment that they have hidden underneath their Gentile apparel. But our ancestors did not fulfill the commandment of fringes on an artificial prayer shawl or on an undergarment. This garment here, this is actually what a talit was before it became a prayer shawl. Some of you might be familiar with this as the seamless garment, woven from the top throughout. Now you'll notice there are two garments here, this undergarment, this white silky garment. In Hebrew is known as a chaluk. In Arabic it's called a jalabiyah or a galabiyah. And this is biblical underwear for the Middle East. Every man in the Middle East wore one of these long, bell-dress type of outfits. In fact, if you go to a traditional Muslim country today like Egypt, the guys are still boogieing around in these long, bell-dress type of outfits. An Israelite would distinguish ourselves by the talit that we wore over our chaluk. And this was the way that we fulfilled the commandment from the time that we received the commandment up until the Hadrianic decree of the year 135 as a result of the Bar Kokhba War that forbade us under penalty of death from fulfilling the commandment. So in the year 135, 136, this garment became a zecher, became a remembrance. It became a little four-cornered garment that we would attach the fringes to and hide it underneath our Gentile apparel so that we could remember the commandment of fringes, but without getting killed for doing so. But because it says in the book of Numbers, it says you shall put fringes on the corners of your garments throughout your generations, and it's stretching imagination to consider this a garment. A garment is something you put on and go out in public and consider yourself dressed, either for modesty's sake or as protection from the environment. So at the time that we adopted the talit katan, we developed what became known as the talit gadol. Everybody say gadol?
Gadol.
Gadol means large. Katan is small, gadol is large. We developed the talit gadol so that when we would meet secretly for a prayer service in the morning behind a locked door, we could wrap ourselves in a piece of cloth big enough to be considered a garment. Because the talit's big enough that it can cover your torso. Then at the end of the prayer service, we would take the talit and fold it up and put it in a bag and carry it out under our arms and continue to wear the talit katan hidden underneath our Gentile apparel. But before there was a talit katan and before there was an artificial prayer shawl, this is actually what a talit was. So when I say that I research and restore ancient Israelite customs in preparation for rebuilding the temple, I take the contemporary custom of exile, the way that we've been doing it for the last 2,000 years, research it, restore it, put it back out on the streets of Jerusalem. And today there's no more Titus or Vespasian or Hadrian, these Roman emperors over us, telling us, no, you can't fulfill the commandment. We're free people, we're back in our land, upright in our land, right? And yet so many of us are still only paying attention to the foot. So that's a really long introduction, but it gives you an idea of the nature of my work. I research and restore ancient Israelite customs. 28 years ago, I established a workshop in Jerusalem called Beged Ivri. Everybody say Beged?
Beged.
It's like B-E-G-E-D. Beged?
Beged.
Beged means garment in Hebrew. Garment. Everybody say Ivri.
Ivri.
Ivri means Hebrew or Israelite. So Beged Ivri means Hebrew garments or Israelite garments, biblical garments. For the last 28 years, my workshop in Jerusalem has produced a beautiful line of biblical garments so that those of us who return to the land, we can begin to dress and look like we live there, right? The black hats and the black coats that are associated with Orthodoxy, it's cute and it's nostalgic, but our ancestors did not fulfill the commandment of fringes on a rag hidden underneath Gentile apparel. We wore our tzitzit as a beautiful outer garment. Now, You know that living in Israel, you're in the army now, right? Citizens Army. So they call me up to the army, I show up, and get my uniform, and they expect me to fulfill the commandment of fringes on one of these dinky things hidden underneath my army uniforms, right? I'm Mr. Biblical Garments, right? So what did I do? I took all my army uniforms home, and I redesigned them into four-cornered garments, right? I sewed them closed in the front, opened them up on the side. I got a religious ruling that zippers are considered open even in the closed position. I got khaki-colored zippers so there wouldn't be a problem with camouflage. And I redesigned all my army uniforms into four-cornered garments and tied tzitzit, fringes, and with the tails with the blue fringe on the corners of my army uniforms, right? Show up at the base, what did they do? They tried me for destroying army property. I said, destroyed it. I sanctified it. I make a blessing on my uniform when I get dressed in the morning, right? And they didn't think it was funny. They threw me out. They figured this guy's nuts. Get him out of here quick before he infects anybody, you know? Out. Now, I was the paymaster of my base, which, if you've ever been in the service, you know, paymaster's a pretty cushy job, you know? You're like the accountant of the base, you know? 11 days later, I'm home enjoying my release from the army, right? 11 days later, I get a phone call that the annual financial report came due for the base and nobody knew how to fill out the paperwork. Would I mind please coming back and finishing my army service? Which I did with my tzitzit attached to the corners of my army uniform. Right? When you come to visit me in Jerusalem, which you guys got to come visit me in Jerusalem, right? You'll see on display in my workshop one of my army uniforms with my sergeant stripes. I'm Sergeant Reuven, believe it or not. Right? It's funny, when I got that third stripe, the base commander was like, "Who authorized this? We should be taking one away from you, not giving you another one." But you'll see one of my army uniforms on display with my tzitzit. Now, for the most part in Israel today, the guys wear pants-wearing public, wearing slacks. You know, like here, all the guys are all wearing pants. Some people are going back to the haluk, but that's either like the real oddballs, or the guys who like start to take it on for like special occasions like weddings or feasts, stuff like that. But for the most part, the guys wear pants-wearing public. So we've made a modern adaptation of the biblical talit. I call it a tunic. It's the garment that I'm wearing. It's a four-cornered garment, open up the majority of the way on the sides. And I have a beautiful line in the back room there after we break. I have like dozens and dozens of colors of tunics for the guys.
Do you have any for boys?
I custom make them for boys. So like if there's something that you want, mom and dad want to get it for you, or mom or dad or whoever wants to get it for you, we'll take your measurements, you'll choose a color and a material. I go back to Jerusalem, I'll cut it, sew it, tie it, and send it to you. Right? Any size, like from the littlest guy to the biggest guy. You know, some of the places I speak for, there's some pretty big people in America. You know, so I got, you know, like I make most of the tunics my size, so if they don't sell, I can wear them. You know, but I custom make any size. You know, and a beautiful line of garments for the ladies also. Now, you'll notice that the garment that I'm wearing and all the garments that I offer in the back room include the required biblical blue fringe. Do we have any Hebrew speakers here tonight? A little bit. Do you know the Hebrew word for blue? No, blue.
Kahol. Kahol.
Kachol, very good. You're like the first person in my lecture series that I know. Yeah. Right. Everybody say kachol. Kachol. And the cha comes from the back top of the roof of your mouth like you spit when you say it. Kachol. Kachol in Hebrew means blue. Generic blue, powder blue, royal blue, navy blue, cobalt blue, turquoise blue, any shade of blue from any dye source. But concerning this commandment, the Torah does not use the word kachol, it uses the word techelet, a specific blue dye. The same way if I were to say crimson or Bordeaux, that could be any shade from any dye source. But if I say cochineal, you know that we're talking about a specific dye that comes from a specific insect that produces a specific color. So likewise, the Torah was being specific in requiring a patil tchelet, a twist of a particular blue dye. Now, when the Romans destroyed the temple in the year 70, and they took us out into exile, they didn't just want to beat us on the spot. They